The information provided by this video is based on the Guidelines 2000 for Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation and Emergency Cardiovascular Care, International Consensus on Science. This video simulates a cardiac arrest with 2 rescuers. All cardiac arrest situations are not the same. It is important that you react to a particular situation according to your CPR training and local protocol. This video shows cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, using a pocket face shield or mask when mouth-to-mouth is given. If these tools are not available to you, perform CPR according to your training and local protocol. This is a dramatization of a sudden cardiac arrest. A sudden cardiac arrest occurs when a person's heart stops pumping effectively. The person becomes unconscious and stops breathing.
Sir? 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 Help! Sir? Sir, somebody help me! I don't know, I just found him like this. Call 911. I'm going to start CPR.
Yeah, this is an emergency. We have a man that's fallen down in the lobby. He's unconscious.
There's a defibrillator just around the corner. Go get it.
Yeah, we've started CPR.
Cardiac arrest is usually due to a chaotic heart rhythm called ventricular fibrillation. Ventricular fibrillation causes the heart's coordinated pumping of blood to the body to stop. The only way to return this chaotic heart rhythm to normal and provide a chance of survival is with a device called a defibrillator. An automated external defibrillator, or AED, is used to help treat a person in cardiac arrest. Before, only medically trained people could use a defibrillator. Now, you too can learn to use an automated defibrillator and help save lives. Watch this simulation to see how easy it is to use the LIFEPACK CR Plus automated external defibrillator. Then we'll go back through, step by step, to learn how to use it.
Call for help now. Remove clothing from chest.
Voice prompts guide you through what you need to do.
Pull red handle to open bag. Peel each pad off blue plastic and apply pads to exposed chest.
Disposable electrodes or pads are placed on the chest and relay the heart's activity to the defibrillator. When the pads are applied, the defibrillator evaluates the heart's rhythm.
Do not touch patient. Evaluating heart rhythm.
If ventricular fibrillation is detected, the defibrillator prepares to deliver a shock.
Stand by. Preparing to shock.
The defibrillator instructs you to deliver a shock to the heart.
Everyone clear. Press flashing button.
The shock is an intense pulse of electrical energy that is delivered to the heart through the pads on the chest.
Do not touch patient.
The shock interrupts the chaotic rhythm and allows the heart's natural pacemaker to restart effective heart pumping.
No shock advised.
To survive a cardiac arrest, the person must receive a defibrillation shock as soon as possible, within minutes of collapse.
Just a few minutes ago, and he wasn't breathing, and he was unconscious. I don't know what happened to him.
We'd started CPR.
Part 1 of this video shows you when and how to use the LIFEPACK CR Plus defibrillator. But remember, this video is not intended to replace the hands-on training you should receive by a recognized CPR AED training program. Part 2 of this video reviews the basics of caring for the LIFEPACK CR Plus defibrillator. A cardiac arrest could happen anywhere. Let's look again at this typical cardiac arrest situation and talk through all the steps in detail. At the end of this, we'll review some tips for special situations. Automated external defibrillators are to be used on persons who are not responsive, not breathing, and showing no signs of circulation. The basic steps are: check responsiveness, call out for help, call 911 and get the defibrillator, check the patient for normal breathing and signs of circulation. If absent, start CPR, turn on the defibrillator, and follow the voice prompts. If you discover someone who has collapsed, immediately try to arouse them.
Sir?
If they do not respond, immediately call out for help.
Help!
When
Sir?
help comes, tell them to call 911 and get the defibrillator. It is extremely important to activate your local emergency response system
Yeah,
immediately.
this is an emergency. We have a man that's fallen down in the lobby. He's unconscious.
There's a defibrillator just around the corner. Go get it.
Yeah, we've started CPR and we have a defibrillator.
If you're waiting for the defibrillator, perform CPR. First, open the airway. Tilt the head. Lift the chin. Look, listen, and feel for normal breathing. If the patient is not breathing normally, give 2 slow rescue breaths. Check for signs of circulation, such as movement or coughing. If you know how to check for a pulse, do so. If there are no signs of circulation, find the landmark for hand placement and give 15 compressions.
4, 5, and 6, 8, and 9, and 10, and 11, and 12, and 13, and 14, and 15.
Alternate compressions and breaths. Place the defibrillator by the patient's head. Press this button to open the lid and turn on the defibrillator. The defibrillator prompts,
Call for help now.
if you've already called your local emergency number, go to the next step.
Remove clothing from chest.
Let's get the clothing off.
Next, you need to place electrode pads on the patient's bare chest.
Pull red handle to open bag. Peel each pad off blue
Look at the
plastic
pictures on the pads to see where to place
and
them.
apply pads to
One
exposed
goes on the
chest.
patient's upper right chest, just below the collarbone and above the nipple. Press each pad on the chest firmly. The other pad goes on the other side of the chest, outside the left nipple, below the armpit. Once the electrode pads are firmly on the chest, the pad indicator lights turn from red to green, and the defibrillator says,
Do not touch patient. Evaluating heart rhythm.
The defibrillator evaluates the patient's heart rhythm within 11 seconds. While it is doing that, do not touch the patient or the defibrillator. Doing so could interfere with the analysis. If the defibrillator detects a heart rhythm that requires a shock, it says,
Stand by. Preparing to shock.
when charging is complete, it says,
Everyone clear. Press flashing button.
check that you and anyone else are not touching the patient, then press the flashing button.
Shock delivered.
If you're using the model that does not have a shock button, the defibrillator will say,
Everyone clear. Do not touch patient. Delivering shock.
check that you and anyone else are not touching the patient. This defibrillator model automatically delivers the shock.
Shock delivered.
After the shock, the defibrillator automatically evaluates the heart rhythm again. It will determine if another shock is necessary.
Do not touch patient. Evaluating heart rhythm.
If it is, the defibrillator will repeat the entire shock sequence. In this case, the defibrillator detects that another shock is not needed.
No shock advised. Check for breathing.
Check for signs of normal breathing and circulation.
He's breathing.
If you've been trained, you may also check for a pulse.
If not breathing,
If the patient
start
begins to
CPR.
move and breathe on his own, keep the pads on the patient's chest and place the patient in the recovery position according to your CPR training. When emergency medical personnel arrive, they can simply disconnect the electrode pads from the first defibrillator and connect to their Medtronic LIFEPACK defibrillator monitor.
He was unconscious.
And that's it. Those are the steps for using an automated external defibrillator to help someone who's collapsed from sudden cardiac arrest.
Moving around.
Here's a quick summary. Check responsiveness. Call out for help. Call 911 and get the defibrillator. Check the patient for breathing and signs of circulation. If absent, start CPR. Turn on the defibrillator and follow the voice prompts. Here are some tips for special situations. If a patient has a lot of chest hair, the electrode pads will not have good contact with the skin. The defibrillator will continue to say,
Peel each pad off blue plastic.
in this situation, you must first remove as much hair as necessary to allow space for the pad. Then press the pad firmly onto the skin. If the pads detach from the patient or from the defibrillator will say,
Check pads for good contact.
you should check that the connector is completely inserted. check that the electrode pads are on the patient's skin and not the clothing. Firmly press the electrode pads on the patient's skin. Motion detection is a Medtronic Physio-Control patented feature. It is designed to protect a rescuer from receiving a shock and to prevent the defibrillator from evaluating the heart rhythm when the patient is being moved, for example during CPR. If the defibrillator detects motion, you hear,
"Motion detected. Stop motion."
You need to stop touching the patient. Stop CPR. If the motion prompt continues, check for other possible causes of motion, such as the patient is breathing, or handheld communication devices or other equipment that may emit interfering radio frequency signals. Move these at least 4 feet away from the defibrillator and patient. If you hear the defibrillator say,
"Call service,"
it means that the defibrillator has detected a problem that prevents its continued use. You should continue to treat the patient according to your training until emergency medical personnel arrive. Obtain another defibrillator if possible. This is the end of part 1 of the video. You have learned the simple steps that enable you to help save a life.